Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Brenda Meller with Meller Marketing, back for another slice of social media pie. And if you guys watch my show, you know I always bring in VIP guests with me, and I've got a very special VIP with me today, Amy Vaughan. Hey, Amy, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks, Brenda. How are you?
Good. Delighted to see you, and really looking forward to catching up. We haven't actually chatted in person. We've done yoga together with the group, and a lot of events and stuff. But
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to having the conversation. And Amy and I, you guys, just so you know, we had a little bit of we were kind of working out some technical issues before we jumped on, and we did a little bit of troubleshooting in the background. We had it was like a video lag, right? It was like you were talking, and it was a half a second. I was like, the words were coming out of your mouth later.
Yeah.
And we figured that out. And then the other thing I didn't want to change this until I got on screen. I never make mistakes, you guys. I have learning experiences. And I have just had a learning experience with my background in here. I just noticed that the words are too low.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I see that now.
As a marketer, it's like, I can't have that going on the whole show with this person who heads up a digital marketing, organization. She's going to judge me, right?
No judgment.
So I'm gonna get a new background going here, but I just want to say good morning. And for those of you who are watching, doesn't it look better? For those that are watching, I just want to welcome. We're broadcasting this live right now on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. So if you're watching us live, could you do me a favor? Could you drop a comment below? And that way we know the live stream is working. We know you guys are watching, you ladies are watching, whoever's watching us out there. And I'll start to pop your comments up on screen so we can see Christopher Johnson, former guest of the show. He's on with us this morning. And I'll start to pop additional comments on as well. So Amy, so excited to be on with you. You actually hosted me on your, I think it was called She Rocks, right? It was about back live interview. So now we're kind of flipping the seats, if you will, and you're my guest, so it'll be a lot of fun. So why don't we, if you could, take a few minutes, tell people a little bit about who you are, what your organization is all about, and then we'll start jumping into the conversation.
Absolutely. First, thank you so much for having me. It's fun to have the tables flipped. My name is Amy Vaughan, and I am the CEO of an amazing organization called Together Digital. It is not necessarily the place I thought I would be maybe a year or two ago if you would have asked me, but that's the amazing part of this network, is that it has the ability to be career and life-changing. My past experience has been mostly in working for Fortune 500 brands and marketing and advertising for digital. I was a creative director, a managing creative director, working on video right before this opportunity came my way. But before that, it had been my passion for sure. As a woman in advertising and as a creative director, some of you probably know or don't know that as early as 2012, there was only about 3% of women were creative directors in all of advertising. We do 80% of the household buying and have a strong amount of purchase power within the economy. And yet only 3% of us were shaping, crafting, and making the marketing messages that were going out to those women. So it kind of started with that. I attended the 3% conference, which was started by Kat Gordon. And it kind of took off from there. About a year or two later, as I was a creative director, I had gotten the salary and the title I'd wanted, and I was miserable. I was so burned out. I loved what I did. I love advertising marketing. I think it's a fascinating study in what motivates us, what inspires us. I love data. I love creativity. I love the fusion of doing something that doesn't just mean something, but actually causes some kind of change. Like, I like being creative, not just for the sake of being creative, but to be able to see like something happens because of it. So advertising was always my jam. But as I became a mom, especially the mom of two, my priorities began to change. I looked around and I realized I didn't really have a strong group of people around me. I had a few champions, I had a few allies, but the higher I got in my industry, the lonelier I got. I was sometimes the oldest in the room. Sometimes I was the only mom in the room. And really, when Elena Scherer, our founder, found me and reached out and asked about starting a Cincinnati chapter of Together Digital, even though I had two young children at home and a sometimes 70-hour-a-week job, I signed up and I started to help build one of our first boards outside of Columbus. And it gave me a ton of great leadership opportunities to, learn how to lead a team outside of an organization, to build and structure operations in a way that I wasn't really allowed to in agencies. A lot of times, if you're creative, you're creative.
Yeah. Right.
You're not the account person, you're not the strategist. And that was really hard for me. I didn't like being siloed. So Together Digital gave me the opportunity to really stretch my legs, speaking engagements, get more comfortable with that. And grow my network times like 10. And through the years, I volunteered. And then about 3 years into it, our founder was asked by another member to go off and run for Congress.
Yeah.
He did. And from there, she needed somebody to stay on and run this organization, this amazing thing that she had started to help women support women. That's really what Together Digital is about. It's the opportunity for you to connect with and meet with other women within the same field. And I'm trying to remember my coworker, Julie, who's amazing. I don't know if she's watching, by the way, but hi, Julie.
She is watching. I saw her in comments. So Julie's watching. Hey, Julie.
I'm trying to remember what she said. She's like, it's kind of like having a bunch of girlfriends that actually understand and know what you do for a living.
Yeah.
And if you are a professional working woman, you understand how much that's needed. Because it's not just about what's happening in your professional life that hinders your growth as a person and as a professional. It includes like what's happening in your personal life, having children, becoming the caretaker of like aging parents. There's so many things about our lives that change life stage wise, that I think organizations like ours are exactly why I have stayed a part of it, and why now I'm so proud to say that it is my full-time job and really trying to make it work through this entire crazy pandemic situation. And we couldn't have done so without volunteers and workers like Julie and like yourself, Brenda, as well.
Yeah.
Brenda is on the board for Detroit and has done a phenomenal job of helping to lead that group and keep them moving through what's been a really tough year for us all. So it's an awesome organization to be a part of, and I'm so proud of it.
Well, I'm delighted. And I actually joined back in, I think it was 2018. I was actually at a national conference for another women's organization. And Shauna Ramsey, I don't know if you know the story, she came up to me, and I was doing a LinkedIn presentation. She came up to me afterwards, and I don't think I even knew her. And then she introduced herself. We started talking. She's like, you got to check out this organization. It had another name at the time, but it was, the Together Digital. And I'm like, how do I not know about this group? And she's like, it's national. There's cities that are sprouting up everywhere. We've got a Detroit chapter. And the irony is we were in Grand Rapids at the time, and we were both from Metro Detroit. And she's like, you got to come join. And I ended up checking it out. And Shauna's just, she's just that kind of person. She's a great networker. She's really great at pairing people with each other and helping you make connections. And, I loved it. I jumped in like with both feet, and I think not even 4 to 5 months after, I'm like, hey, can I run for a position in the board? And I jumped into that, and I'm still on the board here about 2 years later now. So I commend you, Amy, because it's been a very challenging year for an organization like Together Digital, which is such a heavy networking in-person component. But the good thing is we're all digital, so we have shifted pretty quickly right into this virtual environment too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's so funny you bring up Shauna, because I hope she's watching too, but she's definitely a part of my story as well. She and I, we joke and say we served in the trenches a bit together, working on some pretty high profile clients in beauty. I was the creative lead and she was the account lead. And this was before I had Together Digital, but Shauna, I would say, is absolutely one of those people who cemented, invalidated my need for deeper, more meaningful female relationships within my like personal and work life. She was one of those early ones before Together Digital. But I need more Shaunas in my life.
Well, and as we're talking about this, I mean, this is kind of the topic that we're talking about. So when I said come on my show, I said, what do you want to talk about? Pick anything. And you said, let's talk about relationships, why they're important, how to maintain them, and how to build better ones. And what time than the present, right? Because we're testing our relationships in different ways. We're building relationships in different ways, and we're having to figure out which relationships we want to keep and which ones are beneficial and which ones maybe we don't, weren't really as beneficial to us through our careers or families or things like that. So why is this such an important topic to you as we kick this off?
It has been everything to me for this year, and everything positive that I've seen come from the Together Digital organization is due to relationships. And you're right. I think this time has tested that. I think tough times test all relationships. I mean, if you want to go as deep as say family, what tests family relationships more than anything? Big life changes, weddings and funerals. So this has been for us professionally sort of that test of, can we sustain, maintain, and even build relationships when we're not in the same space, when we're not doing our normal day to day. And I really do truly believe that based on what I've witnessed and seen and experienced in this year, that absolutely, if we take the time and we work intentionally to do so, we absolutely can. And I think that that's really exciting. And that's kind of, we're in this for a little bit longer, hopefully not too much longer. But I do hope that like notion kind of continues on, that people keep leaning into building and establishing strong and meaningful relationships. I think that's the thing that gets me too, is like having worked in advertising and then gone into more of like a purpose-driven profession.
Hold on, is that your grandfather clock? I want to hear it. Is that what that is in the background? It's so cool.
Yeah, that's Grandma.
It reminds me of, if you're ever at a hospital here in Metro Detroit, it's Beaumont Hospitals. If you're in the hospital and a baby is born, you'll hear like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star playing in the background. And I'll be like, in a conversation, I'll be like, oh, wait, is it a baby born?
I mean, I'm sure there's one being born somewhere right now. No, that's my grandmother clock. It's a mantle clock that I inherited from my grandmother. And it's funny because I have an office upstairs, but I have to hard line in downstairs. So I wanted to make sure our Wi-Fi connection was good. Right. But down here, it's every 15 minutes. And I joke, so I'm like, who needs to know on the quarter of an hour every 15 minutes? Like only my grandma. She was one of the most productive people I've ever met. So maybe that was her way of time boxing. Yeah. And so I cannot figure out for the life of me how to fix it or change it so it's going to go off in another video.
Yeah, I like it, but it's actually good for us because, I mean, when we were doing the prep call, you guys like know I do everything behind the scenes and I bring you in on everything, right? Like I'm not like an overly produced, polished person. I'm like, let me tell everybody what's happening. So in the prep call, we kind of get on like, 5 minutes before the hour and we talk for like 5 to 10 minutes. We had an AV issue today, so it actually worked out perfect for us because we still went live at 10:05. But I say we'll talk until about 10:35 and then we'll wrap at about 10:45. So now when I hear the chime the next time around, I'll know we have 5 minutes to get to the, to the wrap section.
Grandma's keeping us on time.
So for going back to the subject of relationships, so for you, I mean, how have things changed for you in the relationships, and what have you learned about all of this through COVID? That's really things that you want to kind of share forward today.
Yeah, it's been a hard year as, a partner in a small business. It's been a struggle. The majority of our revenue was from in-person events and membership growth. And we've got a number of members who have lost their jobs to COVID, maybe can't keep their memberships going. We've done a lot of scholarships and buy one, give one types of things, everything that we can do. But obviously that takes a hit on our revenue and the in-person events as well. And so inheriting, a business in the midst of a pandemic puts you to the test in ways that I never even knew, but also grew me in ways I never knew. And I think the way that it's tested and proven certain relationships for me is that, I mean, I'm a very trusting person. I always kind of trust everyone's intentions as good until they prove otherwise. But I think what it's done is it's really tested people that will show up for me. And who will I take the time to show up for? Because we only have so much time. We're under so much stress right now. So when things get bad, it's like, who do you think of? Who are the first 5 people that you are going to call when, I don't know if you want, I probably don't want cussing on here, but when stuff hits.
It'll be like banned off of YouTube. They'll like shut my whole channel down.
Okay, when bleep hits the fan, you know what I mean? Who are the first 5 people or so that you are going to call? And are those people the kind of people that are going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear? And I think, like, to me, that's been the most telling and most important. I have learned who those 5 people are when things get hard from a business, personal standpoint, whatever that might be. I know who those 5 people are. I know when I call and talk to them, they will pick up the phone. And again, they'll tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear. Right. And then I've also just learned that there are certain relationships, unfortunately, which is hard for me because if you're familiar at all with Enneagram types, I'm a 9. I'm a peacekeeper. Okay. I love just togetherness and collaboration, and I dislike conflict of any kind. I avoid it at all costs. Yeah. It's something that I've learned that I need to start to get better at doing. And part of that is saying no to certain people, standing up to certain people, and then also just letting those relationships go. And that's not an easy thing to do. I think sometimes, especially as women, we get trained and taught to be kind, be nice, and I just think that there's times when I need to be more decisive and more direct with folks to say, listen, this isn't okay. Like, this isn't a healthy relationship. This isn't how I would want to be treated. And so that's hard, that's for somebody like me, I will readily stand up for anybody else. Like I was that kid on the playground that stood up for every kid that got bullied. But for myself, it's always been harder. So I think in a way, it's like for all of the positive relationship building things that I've been learning to put into practice, I've also been learning how to let go of those relationships that maybe didn't serve me very well.
I want to jump in because I think one of the things I read early on when social media first started to hit, women do really, really well on social media, right? And why do we do really, really well? Because we like to be liked, right? Yeah. And as you're talking about, severing or parting ways from those relationships that don't benefit you anymore, right? We want to focus on the like. We want to be liked by people. We want to be likable. So other people enjoy being around us. And I'm the same as you, Amy. I don't like conflict. I try to approach things from a middle ground where we can, but at some point you got to go, you know what? We have to just agree to disagree and figure out whether this friendship or relationship is salvageable. If not, then maybe we just need to part our separate ways and move on. But that's really hard when you like the like, right?
It is. It really, really is. You're right. Yeah. But I think, two things that, and this wasn't something I said, this was something, another good, strong female working relationship that I had actually while I was working with Shauna. We were like that little trinity of account, project management, and creative, young. I remember the first time I met her, I was like, she's this tiny Asian woman with this bad blank haircut. Man, it's hard not to cuss. What's wrong with me? My grandma has possessed me. She got a mouth. But she had like tattoos. She rode a Ducati. I was like, oh my gosh. She just like was so direct. And I was kind of in awe of her and afraid of her. And she became one of my closest friends, allies, advocates, because I always knew, again, she was one of those people that would tell me exactly what I needed to hear and not what I wanted to hear. And I knew that it was coming from a place of a good place, a healthy place. And not a place of, of jealousy or dissent or anything like that. And so anyway, she always told me, she's like, Amy, there's only two things that matter in every relationship, and that is trust and respect. And if you do not have either of those things, it's not true. Yeah. If I can't trust you, we're never going to have a strong relationship. If I can't respect you, or if I don't respect you, then we won't have it. And it's both of those things. And she was 100% absolutely right. It has to be both. I think about any time a relationship of mine has gone a little squirrely, I realize, okay, what has been compromised? My respect or my trust? And sometimes if they're acting out of character, or if they're doing something that makes me second guess them, I'm like, okay, I've lost my sense of trust in them. How do I need to kind of approach that? How do I need to address that? Because what I've learned is that when you come in and you address that, you have a chance of salvaging the relationship. If you let that sit and fester, it will over time wear down and ruin the relationship, whether it's professional or personal. So what the other person
has to want that too, because if they're coming from a place where I don't trust you and I don't want to trust you because I know you're wrong and you're going to lie to me, or, I don't respect you because I don't think that you respect me. And you have to come to that place, you have to come to that table together, right? That let's be open to hearing. And, I've had experiences like that in my past. And I'm like, I heard somebody's side of the story. I want to hear this person. I want to hear your side of the story. I want to talk to you direct, and let's form our own opinions about things. Right.
100%. Because what I found, Young's a great example. I mean, honestly, I can think of most of the women that I have the strongest, most deepest, and most meaningful relationships with, that I have the most respect for, are sometimes the ones that came off a little disagreeable. And that's another thing we talked about. Women like to be liked. We were told that we should be liked. And so when you meet someone who just kind of says what needs to be said, sometimes that sets you off and you're like, I don't know if I trust them, or I don't know if I respect them. And what I've learned is, as I've, like you said, I have been like, okay, don't judge straight away. Give it time, get to know them, and form your own opinion, get to listen and hear their side of things. And so absolutely, anytime trust or respect is kind of questioned or compromised on either side, I think the best way to salvage relationships is to directly address it. Another great one is, we had a strategist come in to our team when I was working on Folgers, and he asked some really hard questions. And it wasn't so much about the questions, it was the way the questions were getting asked that was like tearing up my team. Oh, wow. And as creatives, like, their motivation was, constructive criticism, not destructive criticism. And it kind of felt destructive. And so it was really scary for me at the time, because I had just gotten into the role. I was new to the account. But I kind of I understood and knew where he was coming from. And so again, use your empathy, assume best intentions. And I sat him down and I was like, listen, my team is not taking your feedback
Mm-hmm.
because they really feel like they're not being respected.
Right.
And so they don't trust you when you give them
Mm-hmm.
feedback. But I'm hearing what you're saying. And if I peel away the whole, I've got thicker skin. If I peel away the delivery and I just listen to what you're asking the right questions. I
Right.
said, if you were to just tweak it a little, I said, I think they'll be more receptive to what you're saying, and I was like, I can keep pushing them and I can rephrase your feedback, but it would save me a whole lot of time if you would just.
Right. It's the approach too, because once if going back to that whole trust respect thing, if people can't trust you or they're not respecting your approach,
right.
The message, it doesn't matter what the message is, it can be the most inspirational, beautiful message of all. But if those elements aren't being, then it's just kind of like la, 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 right? You're not listening to it.
It's direct, it's clear and kind at the same time. It can't just be, so direct and abrasive. So that was another thing I wanted to bring up was, at some point was disagreeable givers. Are you familiar with Adam Grant and his work? Okay. So I love a lot of the work that he's done. And I got to hear him speak at one of the 3% conferences many years ago. I think it was 2013, I want to say. And he talked about disagreeable givers and disagreeable takers and agreeable givers. So look it up. There's this whole quadrant, and he talks about personalities and how people fall within these quadrants. And he really advocates for disagreeable givers because agreeable givers are kind of like your doormats. They're the folks who will always say yes and placate and say what you need to what you want to hear.
Right.
Disagreeable takers are kind of like the very clear villains of things. They're there to destroy, they're there to take, they're there to whatever. And then you've got your agreeable takers, and those are like the sketchiest, right? Those are the ones that schmooze and know how to work a room and work people and manipulate, but they're there. They seem agreeable, but their motives are to take. And then the disagreeable givers are the ones that he really champions. And for me, disagreeable givers are the people I try to surround myself with. Those are folks who, again, are used like that notion of being clear but kind in a way that lets them be disagreeable, but that it's coming a trusted place of respect, where they are basically telling you what you need to hear because you need to hear it, and not because they have ulterior motives. And I think looking for those sort of folks are really important, in fostering those relationships and maintaining trust and respect with those disagreeable givers has proven most beneficial to me because, as a 9 and being collaborative, it doesn't, and even though I'm a peacekeeper, I don't necessarily want everybody to agree with me. I want people to look and say, here's another perspective, because that's another thing that's like a superpower of the 9, supposedly, is that we can kind of see things and take in perspectives from all sides. And so that's what I look for, is I want kind of like a balanced point of view for whatever it is that I'm, working through or dealing with. And if you don't have disagreeable givers around you, it's not going to happen for you. I just don't want a bunch of yes men or women around me. That doesn't really help.
You want to have people that can help you to see your blind spots, because you only see this perspective, Amy's perspective of the world. You can't see Brenda's perspective and Joe's perspective. I mean, you want to understand what you might be missing. And it's even like, I'm probably working in advertising, and to your earlier point, women, what was it? We purchase 80% of the products and services, and yet, your male creative directors are dominating the field. And I imagine you probably come across a lot of campaigns in your days where, as a woman, you look at this and go, we can't do this. And the men are in the room are like, why? And you're like, it's like this issue,
Yeah. And you'll see lots of things that clearly weren't vetted through.
Right. But yeah, having people, and it's almost reminds me of that concept of creating your personal board of directors. You want to have people that you choose on your board that aren't just going to always agree with you, but you want to have people who can respectfully challenge you and help you to continue to grow and see those blind spots, right?
Yes, definitely. And I'm so grateful for that. That's one of the very first things I did as soon as I came into this role. And before I even kind of identified myself went through the process of identifying myself as a type 9. And now looking back, I'm like, I totally see why I did it. Was help to build a national board, a group of women who were experienced in a number of different backgrounds, that I could lean on to sort of work through things, some difficult challenges, in a year when we have had so much happening in the world, and we all just want to put our best foot forward, be good allies, be good representations for what it is that we do. It's really difficult. It's tricky waters to navigate. And so I always want their ideas, their notions, their perspectives, just to make sure that, we are being as intentful as we possibly can with anything that we're doing. So I am absolutely grateful for that group as well.
Yeah. Well, I hope I'm not sure how many of them are watching, and hopefully many of those ladies are watching. If not, we'll make sure to get the link to them, and I'll tag them in the posts and stuff like that, because I commend we're all volunteers in the organization. I mean, there's a couple of paid employees, you and I think Julie, and that's about it. And everybody else is helping to run the organization or provide guidance at the local chapter level, the city boards, the national board. We're all volunteers, so we're doing this out of the kindness and goodness of our heart, but because we each have a vested interest. There's something that we are getting out of the group, and there's something that we are giving as well. So there's both sides of that, but I agree. You're surrounded yourself with a great team and people who are open to talk candidly. I think that's important too.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So we're going to kind of start to shift gears in a minute or so here. I want to put the ticker back on just to remind you guys, if you have any questions, I should say, for Amy. I'm trying to multitask and find my little ticker right now.
Okay, I know how it is.
This was the first one I was supposed to put up, and I put the wrong one. So the second one is actually what I want to put up now, which is comment below if you would like to ask a question or contribute to the conversation. And we're going to shift gears now and start to see who's been watching. I'll give a couple more shout outs as they're coming through here.
Nice.
If you see any names you recognize, Amy, feel free to stop me, because I don't know all the city champions and board members. I know you know a lot of their names. I did see Julie. Here's Julie. Julie was on here earlier, so Julie's still watching us right now. And let's see, a couple more folks that were kind of joining us. We actually are international. We have Samuel joining us from Nigeria this morning.
Awesome.
It might be afternoon or evening there, Samuel, but thank you for joining us. And let's see, we have Stuart from Portland on here. Lawrence is joining us. Let's see here. Sweta's actually, I think she's in Toronto, so she's a little north of us internationally here. So let's see here. Women power is to be respected by everyone. And I want to just pause on this for a second. And it's kind of funny, our kids now, Amy, are growing up in a generation where there are more women in positions of power. And it's not quite so odd, but it's still... someone gets elected to a national position that a woman has never held, and it's something we have to acknowledge because it is a first, that type of thing. But I always like when I see articles that talk about this woman being the first to do this or the second to do this, I say replace women with men, and then you'll start to feel what we're feeling.
Yeah.
Imagine if you were to say, and I'm just throwing this out, the first male president that we've ever had. Doesn't that sound weird to say that? Why wouldn't that sound weird? On the flip side of things. So women in power. Yeah. So Christopher says a personal board of directors is essential. So is this something you've had? Have you had a personal board of directors throughout your career, Amy? Is this something you've used as a concept, or?
It's something I've built over time. It took me a while to get there. I think it wasn't until I was almost at my breaking point of just being burnt out and tired, a mom of 2 young kids, no sleep, working crazy long hours, and just realizing I can't do it all. I can't be it all. And I don't really know that I want to. And so learning to sort of lean on my community and my relationships, and really test those relationships to find out who are my personal board of directors has been really essential. I think that Together Digital, because before this, I was a member and a volunteer, it was putting that into practice and making that a part of my time. It's funny because people would ask, how do you find time to do all of this? And I was like, that is my me time. Right. When I get up and I go to a peer circle meeting or to a meetup or to one of our board meetings, that was my time. I always left those things feeling energized and inspired and informed. I was doing something for myself. Right. So building that personal board of directors gets easier when you're a part of a community, I feel personally. But you can be intentional about it as you work through your life and your career, of just finding folks that, again, that you will always show up for them and they will always show up for you. And so I think for me, that kind of happened a little bit organically at first, and then through the years more intentionally.
Mm-hmm. And there's a couple more comments coming on here about, board of directors, and Rachel saying, I need a personal board of directors. So what advice do you have for women like Rachel or other people that are watching that are thinking about creating this personal board? Like, how do you find them? Who should you be thinking about? And earlier you said, don't just pick yes people. You want to pick people who can, what was the term? Respectfully disagree? I can't remember. What was
disagreeable givers.
Disagreeable givers to have. So how can people like Rachel, if she wants to build a board, how can they build that, and who should they look for?
I would say look at people that you admire, people that have skills that you don't. So I've always looked for men or women who just possess a certain ability that feels like it's beyond me, whether that is just like being very decisive, having the ability to, for me, say no. Those were the kinds of people at first that I was like, oh, I'm so bad at that. So if I see somebody exemplify a quality that I feel like I'm lacking, I will kind of hone in on that and start to work to get to know them through coffee or lunch, or, with Together Digital, we make it a practice of doing asks and gives. And you can do that at an outside of an organization like ours. But I think it's one thing that as women, especially, we've just not been, again, conditioned to do a lot of.
Can you explain what it is that we do, the asks and gives, so people that are watching,
Yeah. So asks and gives is a really awesome practice, which allows us to basically kind of crowdsource, problem solve for our members. So anytime we meet in person or virtually, what it does is we kind of open up the floor. Everybody gives a little bit about where they are on a scale of 1 to 10. If you're in a peer circle group, if it's an open kind of bigger event, we really encourage women to come with asks, and asks can be anything personal or professional. Some example asks have been, I remember we had a meetup here in Cincinnati like 2 years ago, and a woman stood up 8, maybe 9 months pregnant and was like, I'm at a startup. I don't have paid leave nor short term. What do I do? And we just kind of walked to her, sat down with her, luckily had a few HR specialists in the room with us, and they were able to help coach her through to go back to her place of employment and negotiate her leave. And institute a policy for the organization for the women who would be taking paternity leave in the future, and men, because I don't even think they had paternity leave for men. In the month before she had the baby.
Wow, that's great.
Was a woman said that she didn't think she was getting paid the same as a male counterpart who was doing the exact same job as she was. And somebody gave her kind of the give, which is the advice of, just ask your boss, do I make the same as him? We started the same
point blank, really?
School. She asked. She got a $60,000 a year raise.
Oh my goodness. I was not expecting that.
Not 16, 60.
Wow.
60.
Wow.
So, asking is really important. As somebody who's an anxious introvert, Rachel, I understand. I'm an extroverted introvert. I love spending time with people, but I don't like small talk. I hate big crowds. I love small, intimate settings. I love deep, meaningful conversations and relationships. So look for the spaces and places in which you can achieve those. Don't think that because you want to grow your network, you have to walk into a room full of people and start handing out your business card and doing a bunch of small talk. I have found that, I think just sort of being more intentional about who I try to get to know better and spend my time with, again, based on those gaps and skill sets that I see, I'm like, I respect them because of X, Y, and Z, and I want to learn how they do it.
Yeah.
Like, don't be shy about that. Ask for coffee, ask for lunch. Again, you can do it virtually. We do virtual coffee chats all the time. We have a Slack community, and we've got this awesome little plugin from Donut that randomly places you with any member within the organization. And it's just a wonderful way to just meet about anyone. So it's not quite so intentional, but what's really cool about it is like, you'd be hard pressed to not have a great conversation in 30 minutes with another woman who works in a similar field than you. So I've really, really enjoyed that. So it's really about being intentional with the time and the effort and the people that you're looking to build those relationships with.
Yeah. So I saw Shauna was on here, and then Shauna asked a question too. Yeah. So I want to put Shauna's question on here. So many people that are influencers that she would like to meet. What are your tips for trying to reach out to someone for the first time?
Well, I'm going to throw in a great tip that I've heard from this wonderful woman named Brenda Meller, who knows a lot about LinkedIn. I do a lot of cold outreach on LinkedIn. I'll say, hey, listen, we have not met yet. However, I really admire X, Y, and Z work that you're doing. Be specific about what it is that you like about them. And again, you only have, unless you have premium, like you've only got so many
300 characters. You got to like quick, right?
And really let them know like why, what it is that you hope to talk to them about and why. And again, like flattery is always great. People love to talk about themselves, what they do, why they like it, because they're passionate about it. Hopefully, if they're good at it and they're an influencer, asking, just asking, putting it out there, and or looking at your personal network and saying, okay, who do we have in common? And can they introduce us? And looking for
name drop Shauna Ramsey, right? If Shauna's in their circle of connections, be like, hey, I see that we both know Shauna, because Shauna's like the kind of person, like, I feel like she's just this mega networker, and she's such a kind, caring, positive person. So when you name drop somebody like Shauna, everybody gets that same warm feeling.
Easy. No, exactly. I 100% agree. Yes, I have a few people that like if I mention their name, I know that person's going to reply to me because again, like they're somebody who has built very meaningful and intentional relationships. Yeah. Because again, if they haven't and you name drop, that kind of tells you something. It's just like they've just managed to get to know everybody, but do they really know everybody? And if somebody sends me from somebody that I've maybe talked to twice, I'll be like, yeah, okay, I'll get back to you. But if somebody comes my way and says Shauna's name, I'm going to get right back to them.
Social capital, right? That's the concept. It is social capital. Is those people that they have good intentions. They're good relationship builders. They're givers too. They're the type of people, like if you go to them and say, I need help with this, Shauna's going to drop what she's doing and she's going to help you with that. So I know we're getting a little bit close to time, and I think this is a really nice segue into kind of wrapping us up for the conversation. And Rachel is just saying, I guess I need to find some good groups to join to get started. Now, I'm going to get a little bit of a plug here too, because Together Digital used to be national, and you had to have a city chapter nearby to join. And that was the local chapter that you affiliated with. But then you could participate in the national Slack channel and the national events, and everything now is virtual, right, Amy? So for people like Rachel that might be watching, and there's a lot of different groups out there. So advice on where she could find groups. And then if she wanted to find out more about Together Digital, check out events. Can she come for free? Does she have to sign up? How does that process work?
Awesome. Yeah. That's like a great shoe-in for Together Digital. And I think we're really trying to establish a space that feels, because it's women and it's women in digital or digital adjacent fields, we want it to feel like a safe space. We want it to not feel like it's exclusive in the sense of you come as you are. I think that's one thing I loved about our events when they happened even in person. I want that to feel the same way virtually, that you walk into that room. Some of the best compliments we've ever gotten about the organization has been, I walked into the room and right away I felt like I fit in and I belong, because that's all we want is to belong. And I think as women, sometimes that's a really hard thing, and that could be a whole nother talk. We're not always so good about being welcoming towards other women. And so I really want that to always be the case for us. So look for groups, Rachel, outside of Together Digital. Check it out, www.togetherindigital.com. We do have a first month free of membership, so you can just try things out. But look for organizations and groups that share not just your skills and like your profession, but your values. Your values. That's what makes us different. That's what makes being a part of this, even before I was running the organization, so different, was that this was a group that was no BS. Like women have to support women. And if you're not doing things that are either trustful, respectful of each other, you're not going to be around for long. Or that's going to be addressed. Like we have an entire code of conduct that we're working through right now for our members, because we want this to be a safe space and an inclusive space for collaboration and elevation of women. So look for something where you share your values. But yeah, we've got a lot of great stuff coming up. We've got a Q4 virtual summit talking about digital culture that is happening next week on December 16th. So be sure to check that out. We have an event page for that. We're going to have some speakers from Microsoft and eBay and Accenture and just all over. I'm so excited. We've got an entire panel that's going to focus on the intersection of innovation, diversity, and inclusion. We're also having a keynote speaker from Porto Novelli. Ooh, early announcement. I haven't actually even published this yet. Porto Novelli is a great purpose-driven organization that leverages data and whatnot to really help brands focus in on how they can make an actual difference and live their values. And they've got some amazing casework and research that they're going to share right now. And then after the first of the year on cancel culture, which I'm also really excited about, talking about people's relationships with brands, another great topic that could be in a whole another hour long. But be sure to check out the summit. We're really excited about it. Everyone's worked really hard to help round up some really amazing folks, and I'm excited about the panels and the groups that are speaking, because it's highly diverse, but then they're all just absolute rock stars in what they're doing. So I'm excited about that. It's a tremendous organization to be a part of. Members are free for that. Tickets are $25. If you're
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. So members are free. So when you join, this is one of the things I love about this group is like some other organizations I belong to, when it's their premier events or their annual meetings or quarterly, like you have to pay. Like for us, it's like you pay one membership fee either for the month or for the year, and then you're in, and everything is free. And I have to give a little bit of a plug too. When you join a national organization, I don't have to just go to the Together Digital Detroit events. I can go to other cities from across the country, and there's a national event calendar, and I can kind of pick and choose based on the topics, time of day, things like that. But the national, the quarterly summits are so free for members, and then $25 if you're not a member, and that gets you access to everything, right? Okay, that's cheap. That's really good price. I mean, it's like a bonus to check it out, and you could join. You get your first month is free? Is that how it works? So you join first month free, and you can go to the summit, right? You can go to the quarterly summit as a part of it.
Yeah, if you sign up and get that trial membership right now, you can go to the summit for free. We have these things called virtual peer circles that are like virtual peer coaching circles that happen on a weekly basis. We have them for working moms, one-woman shows. Like you said, we do yoga twice a month. We have a book club. I mean, it's been a lifeline. I know not just for me, but for so many of our women within our group. And then we've got a job seekers virtual peer circle as well. If you're job hunting right now, my heart goes out to you. One, because things are so difficult already, but two, in isolation, having to look for a job, like talk about being extra lonely. I really love that weekly virtual peer coaching group has been able to meet to create some solidarity, but also see some success, because about every week or so we get one member that's landed a job, and then she's a little remiss because she's like, now I can't come to the peer circle every week. They're bonding and growing based on, all kind of being in that similar situation, and they're making things happen. So I love seeing what's come out of that group. So, when we work together, it's amazing the things that can get done and that can happen. So I think we're really lucky that, we're having to live up to the name Together Digital.
Yeah, right. Definitely. Well, we had a great conversation about relationships here today, Amy. I for one, am glad that I have a professional relationship with you, that I know you. You've done such a great job leading the organization, and you have my support. And, wherever we go into 2021, whether we're virtual or hopefully we'll get back to the in-person. And I love the days when we had the national conferences and things like that, because we did get to meet members from across the country in person. But wherever we go, relationships are going to be a part of all of that. So thank you so much for joining today, Amy. I thought this was a great topic.
Great. Thank you.
All right, guys. So as we start to wrap up today, I just want to kind of put a couple things on screen for our audience. First of all, if you haven't left a comment yet, make sure you leave a comment before you leave. And here's a little hack I have. If you're watching this and it's live streaming, I know like if you leave a comment, sometimes it hiccups and you lose the live stream. What I do is I watch it on my screen, like on my laptop, and then I find it on my phone and I leave a comment on my phone. That way I can still watch the broadcast of it on the screen and leave a comment. So if you haven't left one yet, leave a comment, and maybe you just tell us, hey, did you enjoy the conversation with Amy? Was something that she shared helpful for you to hear? Did you really enjoy her as a speaker? Drop a comment, give her some love in there if you could. And then after you leave the video, if you could, just go back on and find it and then click to share it. You might message it to someone, maybe who's struggling with networking, building relationships in this COVID world. Maybe it's a woman who is in career transition. You heard some things that Amy was sharing today about the groups and stuff that she might benefit from, the conference or the summit rather, other things like that. But maybe there's just something in the message you could click to share it, and that counts as your LinkedIn post for today. So you can check off one item off of your to-do list. And then finally, if you go to mellermarketing.com/subscribe, you can join my VIP email list where I'll send out LinkedIn strategy tips as well as notifications about upcoming events. So that's it for us today, Amy. What's next on the agenda for you? What are you doing after the call here?
Oh, I've got another call for a potential She Rocks guest. So yeah, that's an ongoing thing. Every Friday we live stream on Facebook for that. So check that out as well. This week is going to be all about mindset, how you can shift your mindset and shift your life. So every week we try to have a kind of similar like guest that has some inspiration, information to share. Sometimes it's professional, skill-based, and other times it's personal development. So this week it's going to be a little bit more mindset, personal development. So I'm excited for that.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like it'll be a great topic. I always try to catch as many as I can. And I try to do the yoga. We're doing yoga. Is it like once a month now? How often is it?
Once on an hour long on Sundays, the last Sunday of the month, I think, and then the first Wednesday of the month for a half an hour. And I agree with you. It has been like another one of those things where I'm like, that in the book club, I'm so glad we do it. Sounds silly, but it's like, again, I'm keeping up on things professionally with the group, but then it gives me personal space to do things. Like I need somebody to help me choose a book and a deadline. And I've been reading again. Like I hadn't been, like it was in the middle of a pandemic. Why am I not reading? Well, I need accountability, and the group is great for that. And then the same thing with yoga. I mean, Megan is just great. She's out in Denver. She's part of our Denver chapter. And I think she's part of the board now too. She, she leads those classes and she does some great sessions. So it's that's another member only benefit. So be sure to check that out. You can get in a month of yoga.
Yeah, no, I mean, that in and of itself, like all these things that you don't have to pay for that you get through the membership. And the yoga is like, I was going to like look for and find and pay for a yoga class.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now I do this. And then I go on, I'm like, oh, Amy's there, Julie. And it's kind of like, it's like when you used to go to a yoga studio and you would like socialize with your friends before you sit down and then you're mad. It was like the same thing. So really great job of pulling it all together. So awesome. Well, thank you again, Amy. I hope you have a delightful afternoon.
Thanks. You too, Brenda. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and hang out for a second because I got a little outro video, and then Amy, you and I will chat offline here too. All right, everybody, take care. Have a great afternoon. Bye. Now, the only problem with that, you guys, is it should be 30 seconds long, so I got to add a little bit more to it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.